May Jesus Christ be given, and let us move forward with Mary. Have a good and holy day, dear children. Today is Saturday morning. The series of catechesis on the little great heroes of faith was supposed to air, but we are forced by the situations that have arisen, which we did not create, to intervene in the painful matter concerning Father Farè and Dominitella. And I'll start right away by apologizing to Father Farè, because he has demanded an apology. He wants it, and it's only right that he should have it. We apologize to you, dear Father. Brother Celestino, all of a sudden, in the eyes of most of the faithful, I say this with a trembling voice, he is no longer the friar who lives the gospel. He is a proud, arrogant friar, full of himself, who does not live the gospel and cannot relate to others. To the brothers, the same goes for Don Enrico Bernasconi. Don Enrico Bernasconi is a priest who struggles to communicate and needs to apologize. Let's not even mention Father Minutella. Don Minutella is the scum of planet Earth. I must say that if I had to wait for 8 years for the apologies from all those who came at me with fingers in their eyes, poor us. However, Father Farè said more or less these things last night, that he is willing to move forward if he is apologized to. Are you willing, Brother Celestino, to apologize to Father Farè? Sorry. Be like St. Philip Neri. What did St. Philip Neri do? One day he was collecting alms for his boys, and he asked, "Will you give me something for my boys, for my children?" One slapped him. St. Philip Neri remained calm. I know who I'm speaking to, Brother Celestino. I know him. And St. Philip Neri told him, "Well, this was for me. Now, can you give me something for my boys?" If you agree, we sincerely apologize to Father Farè with all our hearts. Here you are, Father. We present our apologies because you felt targeted, you felt attacked, you felt pointed out, and all the other things you mentioned. There's a phrase I really liked from your very long one, just like how long this live stream of mine will be. A very long phrase that she said, that is, the mystique she prefers is the mystique of ham and bread. A phrase that I really liked and I will comment on at the end. Dearest Father, after publicly apologizing to you, today we will hold a heartfelt, intense, lengthy, extended live session here to explain to all the bewildered faithful in light of your coming out, and then your expressions towards us, how we see things, and why it is no longer possible to hope for a conversation. First of all, I would start with the most important thing. This morning, after praying 2 rosaries in a row, which is not easy for me to do, especially because of the weather changes here in Montecatini. It's a day as humid as yesterday, which isn't good for me. Perhaps you can even hear it in my voice. After praying 2 rosaries, I sent a message to dear Father Farè, to whom, as I mentioned in the public post, I apologized. We asked for forgiveness and invited him to a public discussion. Why a public discussion and not a private one? For at least 2 reasons. The first is that last night Father Farè held a very long reflection. I ask you, Father, that you cannot expect, as I do not expect from my side, that you follow everything I say, that you follow everything you say. I cannot. I don't have the time because I am traveling. However, I have followed a couple of things, and you did what I would not have expected. Perhaps you should also be asking yourself if it's time to apologize. We'll close it here, because as I will now demonstrate, from today there is no longer any possibility of continuing either with Father Giorgio Maria Farè, who has never been on this journey together, or especially with Dr. Andrea Cianci, who marries. It's unclear if one marries the other or the other marries one. But let's proceed very calmly, with composure, in such a way as to demonstrate everything. She yesterday, from the 53-minute mark, for a while, did what we didn't expect. What did she do? She made known the points she had presented confidentially to us of the Marian Priestly Association. It's about 6 points in which she requested a discussion so we could clarify them. There was nothing to clarify, really, because she has already expressed them in an absolute manner. That is, she has already stated her opinion on the matter, as we will now see, because this is what interests me most about the Catholic Church, about the future of the Catholic Church, and the resolution of this dramatic situation that both she and we from the Marian Priestly Association have highlighted. However, last night she made it known, saying she felt pressured to disclose these confidential matters, while we, the priests of the association, would never have, least of all me, made these private statements public, because you directly asked me not to. You made them public. So she asked for public apologies. But in response to my request, let me get to the point. I asked her this morning, I don't know if I've mentioned it already, because there are so many things I want to say to Father Farè and to all of you. She learned this morning that I sent her a message, more than one, after praying 2 rosaries, intensely asking the Madonna to tell me what to do. So I asked her for a public discussion, because she made the data public, not me. I didn't make them public. Father Farè told you, not me. She could say that she did it because she felt pressured. We haven't highlighted any of her considerations, though. But why did he say no in response to my request? I mean, from today onwards, for me, the matter after this catechesis is definitely closed. I will make an appeal to all those who have come at me. I am not Judas Iscariot. And regarding the one who called to say that I scare people because I shout, I wanted to read the text from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 9. You who bring the good news. In Jerusalem, raise your voice loudly. Don't be afraid to do so. In the Gospel of John, if Father Farè and the others would allow me, I would like to comment. I have already written the first volume. The verb to shout appears 10 times in the Gospel of John. Jesus shouted in the temple. He raised his voice, shouting, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink." He shouted on the cross. Even John the Baptist shouted, "Voice of one shouting in the desert." By the way, the evangelist, picking up the translation of the 70 Dear Father and Dear Little Children of the Small Remnant, you are all so quick to react to the first rustle of leaves. You are all already lost in questioning. Dom Minutella, even Brother Celestino, I in this targeting of Brother Celestino, leave me out of it because I know I am unworthy. But in this targeting of Brother Celestino, who yesterday said, bread is bread and wine and is free to express his thoughts, Father Farè wants apologies. And all the people, it's with Farè and all the people who were with us, who would have given their lives, Lord, I will follow you unto death. Now they are all on the other side almost. And Brother Celestino suddenly is no longer the holy friar we all expected. Why? What did he say? Where did he show disrespect? He made his considerations, but we are apologizing. So I was saying that the verb to shout in the Gospel of John, which refers to the Septuagint, is used twice as krazo in Greek and kraugazo, which primarily means the latter verb, also to bark or to scream. So regarding what evidently came up yesterday, here no one is apologizing because naturally Don Minutella can take it. Don Minutella can be bypassed. I remind you that Father Farè, on the 6th of October, we were, if I'm not mistaken, in Milan. It seems that Father Farè is nearby because he didn't come to see us, instead of publicly praising that he wanted to meet us. We were there. He came discreetly, as he did last year. Last year, Father Farè came to see me in Milan for a similar meeting held there. I didn't say it. This is the first time I'm saying it. So it's not like he could have feared that we had made it known, because he already had proof that having come to meet me last year, I never said that. I'm only saying it now. Why the 6th of October? We're there, he doesn't meet or speak. But then Don Minutella can be judged, and Iscariot he can be targeted, overlooked, when he speaks, shouts, yells, and frightens people. Well, then even Jesus, John the Baptist, and Isaiah evidently frightened people. But what I would especially like to add is that Father Farè now deserves a definitive reply, as far as I am concerned. Know this, dear children, that from this moment on, there are no longer any margins. Much to my regret, it was not my choice for collaboration either with Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 or with Father Farè. Let's go our own way. I already know what Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 will say, that we have split, that we do not want to follow the only viable path. I'll prove it's false and they're wrong. That is the canonical way, and I will show that you are contradictory with yourselves. A theological short circuit of Father Farè, a media short circuit, journalistic, provided that Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 has not unknowingly crossed into other roles, as Brother Celestino said yesterday, unless we take them, because if we say things from this side, we take them. If they say them from the other side, no. I will demonstrate that you are in open contradiction, but calmly. Father Farè, take it easy, no rush. I'll also take a couple of hours today. So, Father Farè, first of all, why didn't you contact us before coming out? Better, wasn't it? It was obvious, it was predictable that there would be this enthusiasm from the faithful, for most of them, her departure could simply mean, despite her clarifying it in the first meeting, it could simply mean I'm joining the association, or at least I'm not opposing it. Instead, she, despite her honeyed language, is taking an action that is nothing short of destructive to our path. I'll tell you why. Be patient while I show you. So, why does she refuse, first of all, to have a public confrontation? What could the reasons be? It could be that she was hoping for a private meeting. We didn't refuse her. She asked not to rush. She can't now claim that I didn't respond immediately, especially since she, being an honest and conscientious person, I don't think she could ever deny that I told her, Father, be patient. I'm traveling. I have a demanding schedule to manage, and I'm finding it extremely difficult to respond to your question right away. A private meeting with her, she can testify to that. So, why is there now urgency from the other side to clarify the points for which we were meant to say nothing? We haven't said anything. We feel betrayed by you, Father. Please apologize. You have made public matters that you asked us to keep confidential and private. You've made them known, and we feel a bit unjustly sidelined in this. Now that everything is out in the open, you've said your piece, I'll share mine, which many know. Also because you, as someone mentioned in this, I won't deliver the lion, and keep repeating what I've been saying for years, all things considered. And that's not a problem. In fact, the more of us there are, the better. But the more of us there are, the better it is if we're heading in the same direction. Clarify better, in a slightly simpler way if possible, like I will today, that the difference between us is not at all formal, it's substantial, as I will demonstrate. However, first I want to address the faithful of the little remnant. Reading from St. Paul's second letter to Corinthians. Oh, if you could bear a bit of madness from me, but of course, you tolerate me. I indeed feel a sort of divine jealousy for you, having promised you to a single spouse to present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. I fear, however, that just as the serpent in its malice seduced Eve, so your thoughts may somehow be led astray from their simplicity and purity regarding Christ. If indeed the first person who comes to you preaches a different Jesus from the one we preached to you, or if it involves receiving a different spirit from the one you received, or another gospel that you have not yet heard, you are quite willing to accept it. Now I believe I am in no way inferior to these super apostles. And even if I am a novice in the art of speaking, because I shout, I would say, I am not in the doctrine, as we have demonstrated to you in every way before everyone. Have I perhaps sinned by lowering myself to exalt you when I freely announce to you the gospel of God? I have stripped other churches of what I needed to live in order to serve you. This why I don't love you? I've always tried not to burden you, and will keep doing so. As true as there is the truth of Christ in me, no one will take this pride from me in the land of Achaia. I was the first. Some priests have joined this path. How is it possible, dear lay faithful of the little remnant, that now you are all having doubts? Because Father Farè, after coming out, and we revealed ourselves to be aggressive towards Celestino, suddenly became the monster of Italy, the monster of the Church, for which we apologize to Father Farè, who was hurt by this. Go on. Doubt it. 𝐷 is not humble. 𝐷 has become arrogant. He is angry. He wants to be the main character. He wants the leadership all to himself. Go on, dear children. Go on. Go ahead with whoever you want. You're unworthy of the remnant. In the small remnant, as we will see now, there can be people who have a clear understanding of the conditions to please the Lord, which certainly do not involve always finding a workaround. To continue coexisting with the Church of Bergoglio, as it seems, as I will now say, that Dr. 𝐥'𝐿 and Father Farè want to do. But I will say it at the right moment. I'm using the same tactics. At the right moment, don't rush me, because I'm feeling quite overwhelmed at the moment too. Now I'm telling you slowly, with a calm voice and without haste. I'd like to read another bit. Regarding those of you who will leave, who will suddenly follow Dr. 𝐥'𝐿, who will do I don't know what Dr. 𝐥'𝐿 can do for you. Now there is Father Farè, who is Dr. 𝐥'𝐿. I say this with pain. I say this with pain. He made a post, a video, on the 21st of January 2023, in which he invited the priests to join the Marian Priestly Association. 21st of January 2023, he had invited Dr. 𝐥'𝐿, the priests, to join the Marian Priestly Association. Then later he used 14 pieces of advice taken from Father Farè for all the priests who want to come out of hiding, asking me if I agreed. I had specified and said that I agree while reserving a doubt, more than a doubt, in fact a certainty, opposite that of 𝐥'𝐿 at number 13, which as we will see, states that if excommunicated, one can appeal to the court under Canon 335 regarding impeded sede. I had said that we, priests of the sodalizio, have made the decision not to appeal, but we will return to that. Those leaving, since 𝐷 is not needed, each incident shows 𝐷 is not needed. So the situation is this. We are traveling around Italy. There's a packed schedule. On the 6th of October, we are in Milan, just a few steps from Father Farè's house. We know nothing. No one informs us. No one tells us anything. Father Farè doesn't inform us about the possibility of his coming out, trying in advance to clarify the differences so as not to create the chaos that is always attributed to 𝐷, who sees without a hint of warning, without notice, Father Farè making a long and interesting, valuable reflection from outing, the joy of the holy people of God of the little remnant, another priest who comes out but does not join the association. He doesn't join the association. Father Farè will explain when the reasons come. In the meantime, the problem, the hot potato falls on me, as always happens to 𝐷. Even yesterday, Brother Celestino's words, it seems I'm to blame. All right, then I started to manage the situation. I pleaded with the heavens, as I always do. I asked for help from the Virgin Mary, because she who asked me has engaged me for this mission. And I expressed my thoughts, clarifying that it would have been appropriate to state immediately what the differences were right from the start for the people, to avoid creating confusion, as has indeed happened. Because if you don't state the reasons right away for not joining the association, and you appeal, people then ask me, and I don't know what to say. And so I apologize on my knees, dear Father Farè, but I know it doesn't help much, because I've also apologized to many others who came at me, but it seems I always have to be the one in the wrong. To the faithful remnant, you'll go with Father Farè. Have you seen how Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 has treacherously and thoughtlessly, immediately sponsored Father Farè? We, the little remnant, the true ones, the true faithful of the little remnant, can testify that Radio Domina Nostra has always sponsored all of Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵's meetings around Italy. Everyone, putting them in the posters. We have an archive where, unfortunately, if necessary, we will have to prove this truth. Always 𝐷ominatella said yes, especially at the beginning when Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵, who did he have as his audience? Who had? Was it the 𝐓𝐮𝐿𝐴 code that gave him the user code? Of course not. We were sending the faithful around Italy asking them to organize. And the proof of this is in the recent bitter incident in 𝐕𝐼𝐼𝐵, where 𝐷ominatella intervened to encourage that the meeting take place, defending Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵, who, I repeat, on the 21st of January 2023 invited the priests to join to the Marian priesthood, even though later, in the 14 points, he added other things that we will see in a moment. So Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 immediately sided with Father Farè and even invited him to celebrate Mass in his honor. You can naturally imagine this if you are wise people, because now, Father Farè, I would like to tell you that without realizing it, you should also apologize. You have created a pool. Do you know for whom? It will be your problem regarding the venomous snakes that tried to eliminate 𝐷ominatella and were eager to find the calm, patient, prepared antagonist, while 𝐷ominatella rants, barks, is proud, is arrogant, is Judas Iscariot, and frightens people. Prepare to receive this throng of disgruntled priests and lay people who will see in you the leader and guide. He could have thought, perhaps given the situation regarding my verification, to give me a heads up and don't say he didn't have my details, because when it came to taking action, goodness how he found it immediately by calling, as you know, someone of mine to get my number. He could have done it before the outing, so he can't use that as an excuse. We will expect an apology for this, of course. Of course, I already know that you will find a way to intervene on this. I was adding that Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 invites him straight away, immediately. This leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. The faithful of the little remnant, who now for 𝐥'𝐿𝐵 are schismatics, we are a sect. It's always the same old nonsense. I will prove that they are the sect. I will prove that anyone who approves the points expressed by Father Farè in his statement, which I have been able to examine, passes with the Bergoglian sect, by law and in practice. I'll show you, but take it easy, in a low voice and without haste. But I wanted to say Dr. 𝐥'𝐵 that he immediately supports and promotes. Why has he never done that with us? Why hasn't she? Because even recently, she in Ascoli, for example, or wherever she went, she didn't say, I invite Brother Celestino to come and say the Mass for me first and then not afterwards. Why not? Why this readiness towards Father Farè? And above all, I may not be well informed, in which case I apologize, this approach towards the priests who don't even consider 𝐷ominatella. Did she do anything about this? When Father Cornet, he pretended I didn't even exist during 2 interviews on 𝐷𝐵 𝐾𝐶IANCI's blog channel with Father Cornet. I, on my part, didn't even receive a response. Dr. 𝐾𝐶IANCI, you have been a guest on my channel multiple times. I waited patiently, in the style you know, because you can testify that the narrative presents a Don Minutella who is aggressive and violent, but you have testimonies of the kindness and gentlemanliness that my father bestowed upon me. I have waited until today for you to host me on your channel. You've never hosted me, Dr. 𝐾𝐶IANCI. Why not? Why? Twice he did an interview with Tempieri and Father Cornet. Why? If he didn't want me, why not a priest? Isn't something off, or is it just me? Why this sudden enthusiasm for Father Farè to come to the meetings, to see us, to find a solution? So let's slowly return to what I was saying. Father Farè made this outing in which he said he was not with Pope Francis. In summary, he does not recognize him as Pope under Canon Paragraph 2 because Benedict XVI, and up to this point we are all together, did not resign. Or rather, he resigned but did not abdicate, and then he placed himself in an impeded position, having retained the office, because then this conclave of 2013 led by the St. Gallen Mafia rendered the election of the so-called Pope Francis invalid according to the Apostolic Constitution Universi Dominici Gregis, which is why he is a heretic apostate. Not that he is not the Pope because he is a heretic apostate, but he is a heretic apostate because he is not the Pope. So as Father Farè also said, he is not assisted by the action, by the grace of the Holy Spirit. But then, so far, this is what Don Minutella said before 𝐾𝐶IANCI and before Father Farè. It's madness that now all of you who are good, kind, beautiful, gentle, holy, noble, and humble should no longer want Fra Celestino and Don Minutella. We are now the Branca Leone army, Fra Celestino. Everyone can come at us, anyone can say what they want and demand apologies. And we, on the other hand, are the barbarians, the privateers, the ones to be eliminated, to be ghettoized. And I wonder if the unintentional joint action of Father Farè and Dr. 𝐾𝐶IANCI is even more harmful than that of the false Bergoglian Church, when Father Farè, as I will now say, gradually states that he intends to file an appeal. We are the idiots, we are the fools, because we created our own church. Instead, I'm slowly getting there. Father Farè acknowledges, pay close attention, pay close attention. Papers in the wind of the little remnant that you are leaving. I've already had a few meetings, not even my closest ones know. Interrupted. No more than a couple of meetings are held, because they go with Father Farè. But Father Farè, if you haven't understood, says that Bergoglio is not the Pope, but he leads the church. Be careful of the traps. Father Farè claims that Bergoglio is not the Pope, and as long as we are together, we cannot move forward together. Now I will show why, because I also have a bit of understanding in theology. Maybe I shout 𝐏𝐼𝐽, maybe 𝐏𝐏𝐽, but 𝐏𝐏𝐽, Father Farè understands me. However, I said it first. I said it first because the Holy Virgin sent me. But it's not that, dear children. I force anyone to believe it. You recognize the tree by its fruits. However, pay attention to the next passage, in which Father Farè has repeated several times, and has written, especially because words fly, but what is written remains, that for him, if you haven't understood, pour reeds in the wind that you are in the little remnant, so then you have done wrong to be in the little remnant until now. The small remnant isn't just about those seeking Mass without shame. It's not enough. There is a substantial difference between Father Farè and Dr. 𝐾𝐶IANCI. They're the ones wrong, as I'll show now. I'll prove it. You can't just claim that. It's not that I haven't said things, I have to. And for the umpteenth time, he says they are in the wrong. They have placed themselves and continue to place themselves in a dead end and a cul-de-sac. They have no way out. They have no way out, because Father Farè is Dr. 𝐾𝐶IANCI, who was eager to find a certain alternative to Don Minutella. But he laid out the velvet carpet in front of him and made him known in Italy. For a good part of the people got to know him thanks to the beginning. thanks to yours truly. They do not recognize Bergoglio, but they acknowledge that the one he leads is the Catholic Church. Ready? They say that is the occupied Catholic Church. Brother Celestino denying matters. Don't you think it's this? They say that Bergoglio is not the Pope. He's a usurping anti-Pope of Peter's throne, like us. However, they then say that he is at the head, let's say validly, of what remains of the Catholic Church. Ready? They say this. And so, since that is still the Catholic Church, the one he leads is the Catholic Church, the solution lies in the canonical path. Exclusively canonical, which apparently is the most elegant, least problematic, it's the easiest path. And here I would like to say to the faithful who are leaving that Don Minutella is frightening and is Judas Iscariot, the text of St. Paul to the Galatians. I am amazed that so quickly, from the one who called you with the grace of Christ, you are turning to another gospel. In reality, there isn't another one. It's just that there are some who disturb you and want to overturn the gospel of Christ. Well, even if we ourselves or an angel from heaven were to preach to you a different gospel from the one we have preached to you, let him be accursed. We've said it before and I repeat, if anyone preaches a different gospel, let him be accursed. So I would like to say, excuse me, it's already a clear point of evidence, but if that were still the Catholic Church, how come only Don Minutella has said that Bergoglio is promoting a different gospel? He says others do too, yet they call him Pope. There can be a Catholic Church starting to enter into this kind of discourse, because if the Antichrist is to come, there needs to be the Anti-Church. But little by little, I will show you everything today. There must be a mystical body of the Antichrist, as 𝐵 says. I'm not making anything up. Attention! If these are the times as many understand of the Antichrist, who is here or coming, the Antichrist needs an anti-church, an organism, a body, because it mimics God. So we can argue that the Catholic Church of Rome, that holy and apostolic one, since it is no longer so and therefore infallible, is the one that the Antichrist conquers. Because of this, they call you Father. In simple terms, stringy, Father Farè, 𝐥'𝐿, they say this, that it is still the Catholic Church with a different gospel. Excuse me, is that still the Catholic Church with trust supplicans? Isn't it just applied trust? I mean, is that still the Church of Jesus Christ with Amoris Laetitia? Applied to Amoris Laetitia, am I wrong? Is that still the Church of Christ in Abu Dhabi? Don Minutella, no messing. Is that still the Catholic Church of Jesus Christ in Abu Dhabi? Yes? I believe St. Augustine said that the Church is in faith, the Virgin in heresy, the harlot. The Church, St. Augustine says, didn't have the problems I'm facing. It had others, but not like these, because we have to deal with lions on one side and lions on the other. Regarding Father Farè, by admitting Bergoglio still leads Christ's Church with a different gospel, she's handing over the lion. This is what I meant. Risks delivering it unless he repents, and we are here ready to wait for him to do so. Therefore, the Church of Christ would be that indefectible Holy One. The gates of hell shall not prevail. However, in the meantime, since it is led by a false pope, they are applying Amoris Laetitia, Fiducia Supplicans, Abu Dhabi, and all the other extravagances. And that was because there is a, how shall I put it, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith that approves and has written the document, or am I mistaken? Fiducia Supplicans, the prefect of the Congregation for the Faith, faith, who is called 𝐷𝐚𝐝 Fernandez, wrote the document, or am I wrong? There are bishops, cardinals, priests, theologians, monsignors, and nuns participating in the synod that wants deaconesses at the altar, or am I mistaken? And are deaconesses at the altar in the foundational will of Christ, or do they contradict it? But if they contradict it, can that still be the Church of Christ? If so, the indefectibility goes out the window. If so, if what Bergoglio leads is still the Vatican Television Center, the Dome of St. Peter's, the Vatican Press Office, 𝐴venire, Civiltà Cattolica, the Jesuits, and so on, if that is still the Church of Christ, then it is not indefectible, it's mistaken. Because it's not just the so-called Pope Francis who wants this, there is an entire ecclesiastical group that opposes it. Soon, we'll discuss cardinals. Get comfy. I don't know how long this will last. It's not just Bergoglio and 𝐷𝐚𝐝 Fernandez. Even Burke is silent. Silence means agreement. Even 𝐥'Hwelki, you wait until 2036 for him to do something. You'll see what will happen. They'll enter the conclave. What will you do? Andrea Cianci inventing a new code, and hopes to say, as he told me, that perhaps Pope Benedict asked the cardinals to remain silent. Be careful not to joke about serious matters. I had asked to be heard. You must listen to what I say, because it is reasonable and theologically sound. If what Bergoglio leads is official, since the texts are approved with stamps and signatures, and still the Catholic Church is occupied because no anti-pope has done what Bergoglio is doing. In fact, there have been anti-popes like John the 22nd, 𝐸𝐵, who were saints, or if not saints, they certainly were not Bergoglio. No anti-pope has operated for such a considerable number of years as the current one, with the support of world powers, the media, and everything, to destroy the Catholic faith. Have you ever found an anti-pope who did that? Because there was a reactive mystical body. Instead, Bergoglio is not at the head of the Catholic Church. There the schism occurred. And when you say that is still the Catholic Church, it is you who are the schismatics, not us. It's you who left. Even if you don't want Bergoglio, you want that church there. Yes, sure. That church you want, right? We will see it. Fulton Sheen, for example, writes, thank you. I'm reading his text. Give me a moment. Here it is. He says at one point, the Antichrist won't be called that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followers. He won't wear red clothes. He won't spew nonsense. He won't carry tridents. The great objective of the Antichrist will be, like that of the devil, to resemble God. How will he then gain followers for his religion? He will spread the faith, and so on and so forth. Now, the part I care about most. Here. He. Be careful, please. Because you need to understand that it's always you, the reeds in the wind of the little remainder. Thank you for having left. Go ahead. Traitors, you are Judas, not me. With everything you have written in these hours, I am truly in pain. If I remain alive, it is for those who care about me. The sign is that I stay alive because I have a mission. Otherwise, poor me. What I have read after giving my life many times for the project. So I would like to say this. Be careful. Be careful where you step with the last one who arrives. Dominatella familiar? For years, as soon as the first one rings the bell, well, you leave it to go with that one. And I would like to say to all of you, you unfortunate ones who are judging my intentions, that I am not waging a battle to maintain leadership. You cannot know my intentions, and I truly hope that the Eternal Father, as they say in Sicilian, Mare quo agi, will make you stop saying that I want to be a great prelate, that I want to command, that I am doing all this because the Father truly is the one who finally takes charge of the solutions. You haven't understood anything. He pretends to take control of something to keep you within the mystical body of the Antichrist. That's all, as I will now demonstrate. So it's important that I clarify that my intention is by no means to go against Father Farè, and it seems to me that I haven't personally disrespected him. I don't get why he avoids public debate. From this moment on, he is doing, I would like to read you the post I wrote, he is doing like everyone else. These years all come at me. I've also seen the new Daily Compass, for example, Professor Morris Aldo Mariano Valle, they highlighted Father Farè. Instead, Father Minutella turns everything upside down. He brings the evidence, at least to discuss it. Nothing. Don Minutella shouldn't exist. What an abyssal difference between Don Ramon's clear, crystal clear choice to step outside and simply say, I join the association because otherwise, what do I do alone? I will not appeal. Moreover, 24 hours later, the excommunication arrives, and I do not recognize that the Pope cannot be the Catholic Church. Now we will prove it. We would have expected something like this. Father Farè might be upset about that. We shouldn't take it to heart, and if we put our hands up, we should apologize too. We did apologize, but we did it this morning because he said that if he doesn't receive the apology, he won't be available. But now we've apologized to you, I apologize to you, and you still don't want to be available. So in public, even tomorrow, I've already said that tomorrow in Bologna, if he comes, for obvious reasons, I won't participate in the roundtable with 𝐥'𝐞𝐲 and Fusaro because 𝐥'𝐞𝐲 is there. With 𝐥'𝐞𝐲, we have nothing more to say to each other. For me, this has been a real backstab that I didn't expect to be so shocking, and now he tells us that if we continue like this, we become schismatic. But who does he think he is? The Supreme Pontiff? They are blinded as well, and anti-church is forming. On this side too. Be careful. I'll tell you the quick thing, then do as you please. Suspend the meetings while I head back home to read my theology books. But be careful. What I'm doing, I'm not doing it. No one can know my intention, so I'm being honest with you. If you want to mess with my conscience, that's on you. I don't want to confront Father Farè because, in fact, it's the opposite. I don't want to. They've written that I fear he is the great prelate, but it's not right to speak like that. It would be better if the lay people kept quiet. But why isn't Father Farè available for a public discussion? He will find all the justifications in the world from today onwards. For me, I have little time available, starting from this live broadcast. I will clarify the substantial distances. This is just the introduction. I will specify the substantial differences, and you will understand that it is no longer possible to move forward with any attempt. The public confrontation was still needed, limit to limit, for the poor people who were hurt and who attribute the barbarity of this whole affair to Don Minutella, Fra Celestino, and Don Enrico. And so look at how the devil is skilled at shuffling the cards. I see a diabolical plot in all of this, and I really hope it isn't prepackaged to be consumed preferably within, because dogs on the roof, as my Neapolitan friends say. Anyway, he hasn't made himself available. Father Farè wrote it. I've kept his statement on file where he tells me, no, look, I'm not making myself available for a public confrontation because then things don't go well. Rebelling as he did will be the moment to do it. And it's always like this. Then how many detractors of Don Minutella keep insisting, and then say he's not available? Why not? When I say, well, then I say now, let's have a public debate, no? Why not? What could be a greater reason for a no compared to the confusion that, unfortunately for me, because I didn't create it, I believe that more than Father Farè, Andrea Cianci created this chaotic magma, insisting there that we now risk schism. It finally came out thanks to Father Farè that you are schismatics because you don't recognize the canonical way. You want other paths. I'm getting to that now. I'm getting there. Why not a public debate? It's not that Father Farè can say it should have been dealt with privately, because last night he said they had to be private, and we didn't reveal them. We haven't revealed them. Don't freak out, Father Alessandro, or they'll write that you're scaring people. You traitor, you who are giving your life to save her, the Church. Why won't you be open to talk? Well, because before it was private. But excuse me, but Father Farè, you were the one who gave the 14 points last night, and you were the one who spoke about the reasons why you don't want to join the association. You want public apologies and a private discussion, but you set the rules for the discussion. I remind you that in this part, there are 6 of us. You set the rules, so we have made the public apologies. The private discussion. But if you have made things known and people now know them, is it appropriate for there to be? It seems to me that in the prayer, I did 2 rosaries. Not just the rosaries, I did the Divine Mercy. I never wanted to stop praying. Because I told the Madonna, don't let me make mistakes with dear Father Farè, my friend 𝐥'𝐿, but let's call a spade a spade. Why not a public confrontation? We'll do it tomorrow in Bologna. You share your views and I share mine, so people listen and realize that we cannot collaborate. So you lot who are just blowing in the wind, now that you've crucified me again in this little remnant, I say go ahead, you will see that I was right. Father Farè seems to suggest a way out, but in reality, it's a dead end. It's a way with no exit, as I will now show you. As I will now demonstrate. So it's the most convenient way, which seems the most obvious, which seems the most natural when speaking rationally. But be careful, because just as there is a logos, there is also a 𝐷𝐸𝐿 for 𝐸𝐾𝐻. That is, God is beyond measure, as we will see now. And God has allowed that there were already in the Holy Scriptures, then with the 3rd secret of Fatima, and then with the prophecies, a series of revelations, as we will now see, that confirm the times we are living in, starting from the unregulated norm, that is the Word of God. Well, little by little, we are moving towards the specifics. Slowly we're moving towards the specifics, but before we do that, one last question. Why all this rush? His father had said he didn't want to rush, he felt pressured, but he had to understand that evidently, if you come out, and to people, Father, you have experience, Father Farè, people are simpler than us, we are theologians, they are not. It seemed to people I received phone calls the morning after your statement, extraordinarily from people very close to me who had rejoiced before and now have cried. Initially, they cheered your coming out. It's not that people can pick up on the details. We gave you time. You sent us priests of the sodalizio privately after you came out. You found my number, but could have done it sooner. On 6th October, I was in Milan. Like last year, you could have come. None of this would have happened, but it's Dominatella's fault. You asked not to rush, and yet yesterday you hurriedly presented the points without telling us beforehand. I wouldn't have done it, but we're not asking for apologies, we're offering them. But I wouldn't have done it if you asked me, please, Don Alessandro, should we keep this thing a secret? Did we do it? We didn't do it, and yes, it could have been useful to bring it up earlier, because we had his observations available. But I told the brothers, let's not rush. Let's wait for a private meeting with Father Farè. And suddenly, the calm, the patience that Father Farè had in not clarifying things immediately turned into a sudden rush. A rush from someone who wants to clarify everything right away with independent choices. But I asked Father Farè, wouldn't a coordinated action, even with substantial differences as we will see now, have been better, more useful for all? And is this attributable to me? So I find myself traveling to Italy. Oh God, what times, what rhythms we have. You might end up catching a cold and have to deal with that as well. You can't eat well because the pace is frantic. In the rain, sometimes we eat to save money, and God knows if I'm telling the truth. And I receive this shocking news. Father, you're gonna... No, I know nothing. What happened? How come? Father Farè did that. What a wonder. But let's thank God I was singing the Te Deum Laudamus, without mentioning straight away that I was quite upset. I'm just like this. Don't you know me? I told no one, not even my closest. But Jesus, I asked him, why always me? But ultimately, I don't deserve a bit of respect after all I've been through. Wouldn't it have been nicer if Father Farè had It would have been better if Father Farè had pointed out that he was doing this outing regardless of the differences. No, I didn't know anything about it, but if there was a concerted action, wouldn't it have been better? So I would like to immediately say one thing, which I ask the EI to record, the minute in which I say it, and that is this. After this long live broadcast that takes up my time that I should and ought to dedicate to more important matters, not that this isn't important, but more important, I point out to Father Farè and Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐴 that any possible reply at minute X when Don Minutella said this, and I demonstrate this other thing at minute Y when he said, but I tell you that there will be no further reply from me. Father Farè, after the things I will clarify, if you wish to respond in your own way, know that I pray the Lord blesses you. You're cornered with Dr. 𝐥'𝐴. I'll show you now. Dr. 𝐥'𝐴, who unwittingly created a background that has exploded. Anti-minute and anti-shame backdrop. As anti-shameful as anti-dominable. And Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 has tried to be a politician. So he plays the politician with them and the clergyman with those others. Dr. 𝐥'𝐴, I begged you to stay in your place. You did well yesterday when Celestino told you that you must be a journalist without mentioning names, but it was clear he was talking about him. So I will no longer respond to any statements. I will cut my contacts with the 𝐥'𝐴 channel and with Father Farè. From this moment on, after I make these clarifications, they can say whatever they want, whatever they think, whatever they want to charge me with, whatever they believe I'm doing wrong. They can contradict what I'm saying even today, which I base on arguments, especially those I still have to present, the decisive ones, regarding Father Farè's points. And to demonstrate that there is a substantial difference, they follow their own path. It's a different road from mine, completely different, not similar, different, not parallel, different, opposed. I'll now show you. The only thing that seemed to make us celebrate is that even Father Farè does not recognize Bergoglio as a father. Enough! Benedict XVI was the last pope. Then, because of the great question, which perhaps a priest who 𝐥'𝐻𝐿 first said around 𝐥'𝐻𝐿 to shout, yell, bark. This is the literal meaning. It appears 10 times in the Gospels, and I can't quite recall the exact number of times it appears in the Old Testament. And now let's see. So let it be clear that this is the last time for me. This afternoon I am in Montecatini Terme. Tomorrow morning I will be in Bologna. Next week I'm going to Friuli. Then I will be in Graz. Then there are all the other commitments in Verona. Then there is the commitment in Cassino. All those you might think of. Not all evils come to harm. Indeed, since she wanted apologies, I will do even more. Father Farè, not only do I present my apologies considering them unfounded, but she demanded them. And it's right in gospel ethics to show them. But I also want to thank you. I want to thank you because sooner or later, since Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 was dragging this out, it was good that you came forward exactly with the copy and paste thoughts of 𝐥'𝐴. I'm not saying that you take it from 𝐥'𝐴. I'm saying it's copy and paste. It practically felt like listening to Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 in the solutions. So I thank you, concluding this first hour of reflection on the situation that has arisen, with these last words. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to finally bring to light what Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 truly meant to say, that Don Minutella has established his own church. He believed that, my friends, Dr. 𝐥'𝐴, look, I can find out everything and now I'm telling you live. You've played too much cunning with the anti-faction, with the anti-Don Minutella faction. No remnant without Don Minutella. Call it what you like, it's not the little remainder. Don Minutella leads the few. Call it what you want, Catholic Church. You're the schismatics, I'll prove it. And you are in a dead end. And as I am fond of both, especially 𝐥'𝐴, I also offer you the solution in the sense that I present it to you, and how you will end up banging your head against the wall, thus offering, all things considered, a chance to remedy that I shouldn't even be doing, instead waiting for them to crash and then saying, did you see? You banged your head against the wall. Instead, I tell you, you will bang your head against the wall, and possibly you will have a way to take cover. I shouldn't allow this, but I do it. I do it without caring to intervene in this matter anymore, because Father Farè has evidently taken the lead. I don't know if there are other priests of that movement, that activist reality, pseudo, small, remainder, that does not accept Don Minutella. Why isn't Don Minutella accepted? Let's see why. There is essentially only one serious reason. All the others are just nonsense that I regret, are embraced by people who are blowing in the wind and would do well to leave. The only real substantial motivation for which Don Minutella might not be followed as the guide of the little remnant is that he speaks with the voice of Padre Pio. Now, dear children, do you realize at what levels we are? Do you realize what levels they are? So the whole battle, the whole affair, aside from the fact that I could intervene on this matter, that every time it comes up, the voice of Padre Pio in falsetto, and then everything I have done, said, the strength that God gives me, the support, the forgiveness for enemies, the patience, the tribulation, the perseverance, moving forward despite everything, notable trials, especially lesser-known physical, moral, spiritual, psychological, inner trials, and everything of psychological trials. I mean, the urge to leave, to stop, to arrest, and yet despite everything to keep going. No, this does not count. How unreliable Don Minutella is, who does the voice of Padre Pio. Don Minutella annoys me. Not reliable. It needed someone calmer, a bit more serious, with a voice a bit more northern, because despite all my efforts, I still remain a bit southern, even from Palermo. But from Palermo, as Bartolomeo Filippo said, can anything good ever come? So with a slightly more refined voice, and that's how it's done. Done. So all this commotion of people who were with us, then turn their backs, betray, and go to court trying to accuse me, and criminal proceedings open up that I have to pay lawyers to defend myself against these vile accusations that I don't even know where they come from. And it shocks me. Woe to him who causes scandal. And so all the criminal proceedings, all the trials, the courts, defamatory claims, sedevacantists, traditionalists, Bergoglians. Now there's also that, finally, of the little anti-Don Minutella remnant. One thing will keep them united, not wanting Don Minutella. Finally, we've got rid of him. He came out yesterday. You're a guide. You shout and scare people. You like flattery. You enjoy compliments. Oh, Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐤 has finally lifted a weight has been lifted. You can now continue to hold conferences and debates around Italy, presenting your 𝐓𝐿ZInger code without Don Minutella, whom you still seem to respect, bothering you anymore, because there were too many people from the 𝐥'𝐤𝐤 underworld coming at you asking how you could trust him. Was it by Professor Mora, but trust Don Minutella? See? Didn't you see it was the devil, Dr. 𝐥'𝐤𝐤? Sorry for you. But don't take what I say to heart. I apologize if you feel offended. But I have to say it, the Parisia, I feel this in my heart and I'm telling you. I had invited you to pray more. I had invited you to join me in saying the rosary you were supposed to pray, Dr. 𝐥'𝐤𝐤, not me. I won't say if I believe or not. How say I don't know, then fight the Antichrist? But does that seem reasonable to you? Dr. 𝐥'𝐤𝐤, is that reasonable? He fell for it. Because if instead she had trusted my words, she should have adhered to the 𝐓𝐿ZInger code, to these, not gone to tell Father Farè to come and say the Mass, follow the priests here, there, do this, do that. She has, unfortunately, become a sort of guide for many who saw in her, through my silence, because I care for her, a guide. She should have said no. That's not it. Instead, no, she dragged us into it. Right. Now, after everything I've said as an introduction, I need to move on to the questions discussed by Father Farè, who, I repeat, refused to hold a public meeting, despite having disclosed last night the public matters that we have not made known. He wants our apologies. Yesterday we presented, but in the meantime, it was him who made known what we did not disclose. All right, let's go to the second most vital part. Father Farè presented this document. I won't hand over the lion, with this title that has also been contested, but it's not fair because I find it, they told him this half-face of Christ with the lion. No, the Lion is of Judah, so he didn't do anything so offensive. Rather, it's a nice idea that he himself had the humility to acknowledge it wasn't his, it was suggested to him. Then I found that final fable very interesting. But I will tell you, Father Farè, that in reality you risk handing over the lion, and now I will explain why. Last night she presented the 6 points that had been put before us by the Priestly Association of Mary. She had asked us, I don't read the posts, the salts, the audio, the writings, because I don't find it correct. As instead she made everything known last night, asking us not to do so, and then she decides. But then she decides so independently, and we can't do anything about it. So she can express her views, but then she dots the I's. From today, the matter's closed, as I'll tell the faithful who want to use some sense. She showed 6 points yesterday. What are these 6 points that he presented to us and wanted to discuss privately? And we didn't refuse. I just told her that I'm traveling. It takes time. Why can't I take my time like you do? So if you take charge, it's because poor thing he needs time to manage aggression. Yes, he targets everyone, wants control, struggles as they take it from him. If I ask for time, it's because I'm traveling with my back against the wall. I have to sort out a lot of things, especially since they acquired little Nazareth. I haven't stopped keeping an eye on what's happening down there. So no, in my case, it's because I refuse. So Don Minutella refuses the private meeting, and the whole world is against him. Father Farè refuses for a public meeting, which at this point, as I noted last night, there are no longer conditions to say, but first we needed to discuss it among ourselves. But you did that last night. Not us. You did it. So now make yourself available, because there are people who are disoriented. And I attribute to you, dear Father, before God I say this, the moral responsibility, pay attention, dear Father, before the Lord, even for just one soul, that until your outing was calm and is now shaken by what is happening. I tell you that I feel, especially with this live stream, that I have never done one this long, because I don't know how to speak for 2 hours straight. Despite everything I was saying, I cleanse my conscience, in a good sense. I step back. Now it's your problem to clarify to the people who no longer understand anything, who is right now. Don Minutella or Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐻𝐸. Is Dr. 𝐥'𝐿𝐻𝐸 no longer with us? By the way, I also hold you accountable for this. I'm not asking for apologies, but you deserve credit for toasting our enemies. Father Farè, I hope you managed it without premeditation, without, as sometimes happens unfortunately, I confess to you, grant me absolution. I have my doubts that all of this was prearranged with Dr. 𝐥'𝐸𝐻𝐸. What do you want? But I am Judas, I am a lout, I am the scoundrel of Italy, the brat of Europe and the scum of the planet. But I am a worm, a man, the disgrace of men, the rejection of my people. Those who see me mock me. He has entrusted himself to the Lord, now may he save him. He frees him if he is his friend. So you last night, Father, presented, thus giving strength to the enemies, managed in this situation, not you, but the situation managed to divide Don Minutella from 𝐥'𝐸𝐻𝐸. Because from this moment, I repeat, I sever every link due to the, how shall I put it, correctness, for which I have given my life so many times. I can no longer collaborate with Dr. 𝐥'𝐸𝐻𝐸. I will pray for him. He did not want to listen to me. It would have been better to manage things differently. A prior agreement would have been useful to inform Don Minutella, not him, because apparently he knew nothing about it. But then if you know nothing, how come you don't gather information? How come you do 2 interviews, have Father Cornet do 2 interviews on your channel, and until proven otherwise, you have never hosted Don Minutella on your channel? Now I will not reply, because I do not have the available time. So last night we finally got to a crucial issue. Last night, Father Farè presented the 6 points he had asked us to keep confidential. I will repeat to you what these 6 points are, at least those as he wrote them to us. First point. If the cardinals enter the next conclave alongside the pseudo-cardinals, what will we do? The second point, the most important for me, this is the false church of darkness, completely soaked. This is my statement that he contests, and it is the decisive one, as we will see. Third point, the theological interpretation of private revelations. That was a low blow, Father, because as a twice theologian, well, let's forget what I was about to say. As a twice theologian, he portrays him as someone who makes private revelations, almost like a sort of Norma Normans. This is an unacceptable low blow, Father. If I weren't Don Minutella, I should publicly ask for apologies. It's not right to say that because she doesn't say it, but implies that if she specifies that a theological intervention is needed for private revelations, it means she makes it seem like I'm basing myself on that. Ah, no, but I didn't say it, but she implies it. Fourth point, the issue of the great prelate. I have made it a central theme of my reflection, especially since 𝐥'𝐿 has wrinkled his nose at all the anti-Minutellian activism of the little remnant. I haven't talked about it anymore. I haven't said anything else. And I was wrong. I'll do the time for that. I'll show you that from tomorrow. I'll take care of it to prove that it's true. We're right. Now I hear that, for example, Mrs. Emanuele, who organized the meeting in Belgium and Brussels, is going with Father Farè. Look, this is truly something that can be explained. It's only because there's a demonic plot. Satan is unleashing chaos because he couldn't close Little Nazareth, and the show has been going on in Milan. Furious. Emanuele, it's the lady who brings me news, and I would really hope to be proven wrong, in which case I would apologize. She had organized a meeting in Brussels with 𝐥'𝐿, me, and then she also included Father Farè, because that's how it works. The last one to arrive gets invited. Don't ask Don Minutella who's in charge. No, Don Minutella's the altar boy. Everyone must learn from him. Father Farè has written, I will intervene if you are objective and calm. Yes, sir. Yes, Professor. Because Don Minutella is everyone's student. Don Minutella must listen to what you lay people say, what you priests say, and what you journalists say. Don Minutella must do what you say. So he's good. So the meeting in Belgium is either off or we do it another way. Look at how something similar is happening to what happened with Father Gebhard. Unbelievable, devil does all. Go on, go ahead, you'll see. So this fourth issue of the sixth that Father Farè raised with us, his funds from the association, which he had requested to remain confidential, instead last night, because he was pressured, certainly not by us, at least not by me, clarified these points. Fourth point, the great prelate issue. Fifth point, the issue of sacraments. Sixth point, how to approach canonical sanctions. These are the 6 points that Father Farè elaborated on in some way last night. If you have listened to his teachings, which are so calm and objective compared to mine, which are instead emotional, subjective, and crude, Father Farè doesn't say it, but in the end, you will see they all come together to go against Don Minutella. I would also like to try to say that regarding these 6 issues, of course, I cannot address all 6 now. I am preparing a written pamphlet that I will send to Father Farè and Dr. 𝐥'𝐿, in which I demonstrate that they are mistaken and that they are sowing error and confusion among the small remnant, attributing to their own consciences the moral responsibility of the act. We cannot meet, I speak for myself, but I believe that the brothers of the Sodalizio will express themselves. I hope soon on this, they will make a post, I don't know, an official statement. I remind you that on Monday, by the way, Don Enrico Bernasconi will present Lupus in Fabula, the statute, on Monday evening. I had thought of the afternoon, but I will tell him he doesn't even know yet. I don't know if it's live, because the timing is a bit odd today, but there was no other option, as I am busy in the afternoon. So I was saying that Don Enrico Bernasconi will present the statute on Monday evening. There won't be an episode about the Brotherhood. We are currently forced to protect ourselves. If Father Farè addressed the points, I will repeat them. First, if the cardinals enter the next conclave alongside the pseudo-cardinals, what will we do? The second point, this is the false church of darkness entirely. You attribute the inebriation to me because it is true that I uttered this phrase, and so he contests it and delegitimizes it. Third point, the theological interpretation of private revelations. Here, of course, we will have time to intervene. I will write a pamphlet to Father Farè. Fourth point, the issue of the great prelate. No great prelate, don't discuss it. There's 𝐥'𝐿, who is incredible. Father Farè shouted, "This is my thought." And 𝐥'𝐿 said, "There you go, finally, finally, finally." In the meantime, the non-minute leons of the little remainder have allied, and all are on top. He's superb, proud, you see, wants to lead, accepts flattery, wants to be the great prelate, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. If it were true, you would be saved. If it isn't true, you'll end up like the Bergoglians who tell me what they tell me, because you are violating nothing less than the sensitive conscience of a minister of God. All right, let's move on. Fifth point, the sacramental issue. Sixth point, how to approach canonical sanctions. Well, I can't address all these points discussed by Father Farè, I note him now. I'll focus instead on 2 points today, but very quickly, because after I've written the text, I'll come back to it. I'll revisit the text later. Could you get me the text from Father Farè, the one with the points that I need? I was saying that I will return to all of this later, and now I will briefly address 2 points which are, in my opinion, the most important, because the others are somewhat marginal, but these are substantial for me. They make a significant difference, marking a gap, an insurmountable divide between Father Farè, the excellent Father Farè, the suffering and sorrowful Father Farè, and the oaf, ridiculous, trivial, clown, bastard, they even wrote that, Minutella, is what I am about to say. Father Farè writes in point 2, I will address point 1 and point 2, but very briefly. Let's start with point 1. Father Farè writes, "Don't complain if we reveal it now. You did it last night, unannounced. If the cardinals enter the next conclave alongside the pseudo-cardinals, what will we do?" Response from Father Farè to us priests. The canonical path of solution is the only one I can consider valid to adhere to the course set by Pope Benedict, which is then expressed through the laws of the Church. I'll await the pre-2013 Cardinals' intervention. Also following the announcement of yet another invalid conclave and the election of just as many antipopes, which has already occurred in history. The Universi Dominici Gregis, in fact, fully contemplates the possibility of an invalid resignation followed by an invalid election. Only pre-2013 cardinals can intervene, and we must exert maximum pressure on them to declare the see impeded and convene a conclave. The application submitted by Dr. 𝐥'𝐿 could be useful in opening a process and building. I wouldn't have done all this if Father Farè had accepted the invitation. I would have removed the live broadcast or said something else, of course. If he'd accepted the public debate, I repeat, he has proof. He won't engage. So what's the point? Is Don Minutella always to blame? Sorry, you should now be asking yourselves a bit more about how things really stand. If after all this mess that I didn't create, Father Farè, sic stantibus rebus, refuses to engage and forces the cardinals to do their duty. Unfortunately, canon law does not provide any other solutions, nor does it allow for the acclamation clearly excluded by Universi Dominici Gregis. If Bergoglio is not pope due to a matter of canon law, I believe we are equally obliged to adhere to the same rules to delegitimize him and promote the legitimate succession that we all hope for. I will answer this question. Naturally, quickly, if there had been a comparison, I was available to start at 2 in the afternoon tomorrow in Bologna and finish even at 11 midnight. Yes, I would do it. You know me, I would have been there to say, let's delve deeper, Father Farè, so that people aren't left confused and can decide with awareness without needing to tell Don Minutella that he's a bastard. Well, then the cardinals rightly, Father Farè, and on this we agree, states, but this is something we have also said, that the ones who can resolve first and foremost the issue are the cardinals, as stipulated by the rules. that Father Farè looks, since I must tell you the truth, I have now understood what kind of person you are. You speak in a piccolonazareth way, as they say in Sicilian, because, for example, you raise the issue of acclamation. You know this matter is circulating. So that's where I say, but have they come to an agreement? I never said there should be an election by acclamation because it is evidently written, and I'm speaking to my daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law hears me, or vice versa. Anyway, I was saying that it is right that it should be the cardinals. Dr. 𝐵 could clarify once and for all that indeed I told him that yes, it must be the canonical path that can be followed to the end. This canonical route, as Father Farè rightly writes, but then there is the difference, stipulates that only the cardinals appointed before Bergoglio can take action to resolve matters, that is, to convene a conclave. Well, that's right. But it doesn't seem to me that we live on planet Mars. It doesn't seem to me that Father Farè is that stupid. He isn't at all. Indeed, I have the utmost admiration for him, and even less so for Dr. 𝐵. So it's right to proceed in the direction of a request like the one made by Dr. 𝐵, which we have promoted on Radio Domina Nostra, with the petitions that we have repeatedly supported by signing them, to try to create an opening for what is the canonical path. Ready? The canonical way, the only viable path, is that they cannot be the cardinals appointed by Bergoglio, because Bergoglio is not the Pope. So the cardinals entering the conclave appointed by Bergoglio do not have the right to vote. The only ones who can do it are the cardinals appointed before Bergoglio. How many cardinals? A couple. The youngest of whom will turn 80 years old, Cardinal 𝐕𝐢𝐿, in 2036, if I'm not mistaken. What should these cardinals do? Father Farè, if I'm not mistaken, unless we're on Mars, I wanted to inform you. Sorry if I'm a bit ironic, but that's just me. Paolo was not Peter and the Baptist, wasn't John the Evangelist. Everyone has their own way, but Don Minatella's the issue. Father, sorry if I'm ironic, but you're talking to me too. I don't talk this much, but the issues are serious. Father, excuse me, but it's been 12 years. Did you know this? 12 years almost. In February 2025, it will be 12 years of deception, 12 years of apostasy, 12 years of lies, 12 years of seizing the papal throne. 12 years, not a day. There are among the cardinals who can enter the conclave of pre-Bergoglian appointment, some like Burke, who have signed 2 texts of dubious nature against Pope Francis, as they call him. 2! In 2017 and in 2023. What'd they do? What did they say? I didn't have time to prepare it like you do. Do you have time? Yes, you have more time, no doubt. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. But you certainly have more time than me, as I have to rush around and get so many things done. But I would have shown you the images of Burke embracing and kissing Pope Francis at Easter Mass. So I say, what can I expect from a cardinal who might deny it and then embraces and kisses him? In union with whom are these cardinals celebrating? With Pope Francis, Father Farè. Do you know if Cardinal 𝐕𝐿 is with Pope Francis? Is Cardinal Burke celebrating Mass with Pope Francis? Do you know if Cardinal 𝐶𝐴RA says Mass, traditional or New Order, with Pope Francis or not? Mass with Pope Francis. And it's not that it can be used, as Dr. 𝐵 personally told me just now, a bit lost in my opinion, as a strategy while waiting for. No, Dr. 𝐵 should be quiet. He shouldn't say these things, otherwise he loses respect. A cardinal can never allow a sacred minister, as unfortunately many do, to ascend to the altar saying to the Eternal Father, I offer this Mass in union with Pope Francis, and then in their heart not truly recognize him as such. Or worse, since I am a cardinal, I have to play along, and so for the moment I pretend that I recognize him. Let your speech be yes, yes, no, no. The excess, our Lord says in the Gospel, comes from the devil. All right, since you might be from Mars, Father Farè might be coming from Mars. I'd like to know, in 12 years, can you point out a cardinal you're focusing on? If you have it and aren't telling us, that's serious. Because then you force us into this. Against the fact, no argument holds. Which cardinals would resolve this issue? However, despite the evidence of what I've been saying for years, do you remember that video? Sleep. The cardinals with the little music that is played for sleeping children who are sleeping. No cardinal. Yes, they raise doubts. And then? And they're waiting for Bergoglio to go. So let's do this. We too, Dr. 𝐦𝐚𝐿𝐤, we're not schismatics or a sect. You are if you think Bergoglio still leads the Catholic Church. There are prophecies, sacred texts, and theology that deny it. You're more with the 𝐸'Unicum now than us. No dialogue is possible. Father Farè just skips Bergoglio's name at Mass. That's it. Demonstrate. So, we have said many times that we too are waiting for the conclave, but it's already a chimera for two reasons. First, because if the one from 2013 is invalid according to the laws of the Church, there cannot be another subsequent one that becomes valid. There must be an alternative to the subsequent one. I'm not sure I'm clear. Why? Two reasons. The first is invalid, so the second is too. The other reason is that most of the cardinals created by Bergoglio will enter. So the non-Bergoglian cardinals will be a minority. So one would expect the cardinals to do something else. And good night to the dreamers, that is, now, to not temper me. But you, Father Farè, think any cardinal knows Bergoglio isn't Pope and misleads souls? But I couldn't close my eyes at night. But how can you think there are cardinals who believe Bergoglio isn't the Pope and pretend nothing's happening after 12 years? What is this, a comedy? Is it a thriller? And where is the Church, the truth, the gospel, the transparency? Where is it? But we are right, because I've always said it. I remember last year the first tensions were already arising, unintentionally stirred by Dr. 𝐥'𝐴, who insisted on the petition, the canonical request, those sorts of things. On the 8th of December last year in Milan, I had to, with witnesses present, hold together the two sensitivities to avoid dividing us. I said there is canonical and legal sensitivity, but there is also theological sensitivity, dogmatic, as we will see now. There is not only canon law, and it is not the primary source. That is natural law which draws from divine revealed law. It is not divine revelation that draws from canon law. It is canon law that draws from divine revelation. And it seems to me that in the Apocalypse there is talk of the final confrontation, which is also mentioned in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, if I'm not mistaken. And it seems to me that if I haven't lost my logic, despite being called a bastard as they write to me, it seems that if the Antichrist comes, and this I mean there must be an anti-church, because if the Antichrist leads what 𝐥'𝐴 and Father Farè insist is still the Catholic Church, then the indefectibility is over, the holiness of the Church is over, its apostolic dimension is over, because there is another gospel, then Jesus Christ has deceived us. Instead, no, the one that Bergoglio leads is the other one. Evil congregation and the gathering of Satan and the mystical body of the Antichrist, which, in the style of Satan's mimicry, are presented, thanks to the support of the media, as the Catholic Church. Changes the gospel, but it's Catholic. So are we waiting for the conclave then? Wait for him? For what? To show that 𝐥'𝐴 and Father Farè, who officially, I believe, have found each other again. So much so that 𝐥'𝐴 incredibly invites him to say Mass right away. I won't be there, he says, because no one must know. Well, until now I've kept quiet, but enough is enough. What does it mean, no one must know? And 𝐥'𝐴, with her reckless gestures, and Father Farè without warning, without having wanted to contact me first, look at what you have created, and you should. To suffer in my heart, seeing that now people are throwing it at me. They spit on me, they slander me, they offend me, they have distanced themselves from me. And Minutella will follow Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 and Father, not Don Minutella, because the path that Christ proposes is never the easiest one. There will be a conclave, it seems. What can we expect if we're not foolish? I know that the cardinals, the ones appointed before Bergoglio, will enter that conclave. I think so. I don't rule it out. In fact, I've told Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 several times. But they brought it forward. That's why I say thank you. Everything sounds even better before that happens. I told Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 that we can continue together until the conclave. Then I will show you that you are heading in the wrong direction with this insistence solely on the canonical legal aspect. Because if the cardinals, in the meantime, we should assume, and this is by no means proven, that the cardinals' good faith is genuine, as they are still electors and entered the conclave in 2013. And I wouldn't bet my life on that. Explained it? Did I explain it? We trust these pre-Bergoglian cardinals to resolve it because we care, that they did not vote invalidly, that they were not conspirators, that they were not aware of the Sangallo Mafia and the entire power games. But on this, even with seemingly undisputed figures, I wouldn't bet my hand. Let's take Cardinal Angelo Camastri. He stays silent. Father Farè and Andrea 𝐥'𝐸 say he should stay quiet as they work and search for a solution. 12 years we see, colic there, 2 minutes. They take away the king, tough luck for him, and we will search for him. Dominatella shouted the truth. How clever. Wow. But, he's being pursued. And well, tough luck for him. We're trying to solve it. Now let's do it this way. Then perhaps they might draw information from people within the Vatican. Fools who don't realize they're worse, the more serpentine they are, who chat and flirt with those who highlight the issue to deceive them. Because there is Satan in the Vatican. In the Vatican. That isn't the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, as I say, is elsewhere. Gone now. Those who cannot see it lack faith, are devoid of humility, and do not have the light of the Holy Spirit, for reasons I do not know. But the Church is no longer there. It can't be that the Catholic Church. Can't be. So we should assume that these cardinals were acting in good faith, that in the invalid first conclave of 2013, they knew nothing about it. But this, we will still need to test it afterwards, because if it's not proven and the opposite is shown, then they are excommunicated along with the dates and judgments. Erroneous conscience versus complicit conscience. They enter into conclave. The only thing we can hope for is that from now until the next conclave, these cardinals, because the canonical way should be that. I'm not speaking, see the flag, sorry for my foes, I'm being clear, it's obvious. They now have to find a solution. The solution is to call a conclave, a synod, a council, something where, before it's too late, before the proclaimed successor of Pope Francis arrives, they recognize that Bergoglio is not the Pope. If they enter an invalid conclave, they are excommunicated again, first for mistaken conscience, then for complicit one. So, keep these cardinals. So if cardinals join the conclave, what do we do? No other way, not true. Why would God have abandoned us to ourselves then? Because then God is placable and has put us in a dead end. Because God has put us in a dead end situation. Because there is the Red Sea and we have to drown. If this perspective is true, it may be that there are other perspectives that God opens, that God is bringing to light to show that it is not the canonical way that resolves the issue, because it is in the hands of the Vatican crows, the Vatican wolves, the Satan's parkers, and so they manipulate it as they please. I'll look into it, but it seems clear enough. We expect nothing from these cardinals. We believe more in God's intervention. Which faith's needed? For the love of God, those without faith will leave today. It's not a matter of revenge against the Father. It's an attempt like some wrongdoers have written about me, claiming I'm here angry and desperate because they're taking away my numbers, my authority. But go on, write what you believe. Those who are listening are realizing the truth. This is a matter of faith, conscience, and truth. God can do anything. Nothing is impossible for God, as the angel Gabriel tells Mary. God cannot be assigned to anyone. The Temple of Jerusalem seemed indestructible, yet it was brought to the ground. In the past few days, I heard a statement saying that these stones will cry out. When Jesus mentioned the temple, he was referring to the prophecy of its destruction. These stones will cry out what you have brought upon yourselves. The Temple of Jerusalem was unimaginable for the Jews, that Yahweh, that wanted it and lived inside it. Look, Yahweh lived inside it. There was the presence of the cable of Yahweh. There was the temple. God can choose to open a way. Not wanting to foresee it means lacking faith. Thinking of solving the issue solely with the cardinals, who, as I am demonstrating, are unreliable, absolutely unreliable, means leading the souls that will now follow it and were with us, and that easily, because every time there is this and then easily, it would be incredible. It's the experience of St. Paul. Go on, go ahead. You will find yourselves in a dead end, and then don't come crying to me, though. But now, in this last quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, perhaps even less, I will address the other point, but of course quickly, because I repeat, I will also make a pamphlet in which I will demonstrate that instead the lion, as you see, delivers it. He hands it over thinking it should be the cardinals. If you think about it, the argument's flawless. That's where the seal is. It's true that it can only be the canonical way to follow, but isn't there more? You can't see if there's anything else or not. Is Bergoglio just the anti-pope for father, or does he have something anti-Christian about him? There was an anti-pope who said it was fine to win couples of eggs. For instance, not to me. Has there ever been an anti-pope who wanted to destroy the faith viciously and stubbornly? I don't. To believe that Bergoglio is merely an anti-pope means, you see, it's a matter of syllogism. As Bergoglio is just an anti-pope, for now, only a canonical aspect can resolve it. But Don Minutella has been shouting something else for years. Goodness. That is, as Bergoglio is not just the antipope and Satan sitting on the throne, it may be that canon law alone cannot resolve the matter. It's a new thing, this monster. It's a new thing, this theological monstrosity. There are no canonical, legal, theological, or dogmatic institutions that can resolve this. Canon law could not reach this conclusion. Courage to choose new paths. Because God didn't bring Jews back from Egypt. He didn't just go there and say, wait, let's see when this Pharaoh dies if the Council of Elders chooses a less difficult one. Got it? Get out! Red Sea parted. The Bible is God's word, not common law. This is a time when those in the small remnant must have great faith. So Father Farè comes to think that the solution might only be the canonical one, because pay attention, those of you who have already decided to leave, you can't say you weren't warned, so sort yourselves out. As for Father Farè, Bergoglio is merely an invalidly elected anti-pope, that is to say, enough, at best heretical, apostate, but enough. So if that's all there is, it's obvious that discovery, well, that's how he thinks. That this can only be resolved from a canonical perspective. However, if what Don Minutella says is true, and it seems to me that the Pachamama procession in the Vatican should raise some suspicions, Bergoglio is not just the antipope, that's not enough. More is needed, and the more is what inspires God, who is the foreman, the lieutenant of Satan, who is launching with the vision of Leo XIII, the final attack on the faith. Foreman. So, it may not be enough, the canonical norm, you see, a synergy, if only the antipope is right, Father, and we are mistaken. We have created a sect that, if Bergoglio is not just the antipope, is also what we have been saying for years, and the persecution that is crashing down on us proves it. So the faction is made up of those who want to stay on that side, that is, with the Pharaoh in Egypt. No, not the Pharaoh. Yes to Egypt. Onions, yes. Jews in the desert wanting onions are the remnant you'll see next. Some are convinced I don't even want to see them. That's just how I am, honest and direct. Let them go with who they want, but not with us like leaves in wind. God tests us. These are trials for which we must thank the Eternal Father. So it can't just be solved that way. And Father Farè adds, in the text he sent us priests, another important thing regarding the second point. I repeat, I will delve into it. I will also take some episodes where I say that instead Father Farè is aware of handing over the lion. Second point, I maintain the thesis that the Catholic Church has been infiltrated by a Masonic faction, as I wrote in the treatise delivered during Sunday's homily. Understand? Before you jump on me, this is at this point, even more than the first point and the other points, this is the second most important point of all. Have you been listening? Where's the main difference? What are you coming at me for? It's Don Minutella, our Don Minutella, the revenge, and he wants to be the great prelate. You haven't understood anything about me in this journey. Go back to Egypt. Listen to what Father Farè says. I maintain the thesis that the Catholic Church has been infiltrated by a Masonic faction. Therefore, for Father Farè, the Church is still what brings him shame, and here lies the substantial difference. I apologize if until now I have been unable to make you understand, like an idiot. But it seems to me it should have been clear. That is, Bergoglio is, in the meantime, an anti-pope, the master builder of the false church, as he leads not the Catholic Church, but the Church of Darkness, the apostate church. In Ecclesia and in Fide Virgo, in Heresy Meretrix, prostitute harlot is the church, the one that Bergoglio leads. Father Farè still sees it as the Catholic Church. The problem is therefore the faction that has taken power, not the church. There is only one church that has unfortunately been infiltrated by a cancer, specifically an anti-papacy. Is it clearer now? But did it really take all this fuss to clarify these things? Why'd Father Farè call me? He contacted me before coming out. He was explaining these things to me. Look, I will go on. I think I deserved this from him, for reasons known and less known. The less known reasons are that we met at his choice, at his request, and I immediately said yes. We exchanged books, we cared for each other. If he had contacted me before coming out and had said, Father, look, I think this way, just to avoid misunderstandings and confusion among your people, I'll give you time to tell me what you think, and if necessary, we can have a discussion later. But no, this comes out and I was in Milan. He didn't tell me. Now I will remember, he could have said it, and I would have explained these things to him. And we can't collaborate, we can't form a confederation. We are not with those who, in one way or another, orbit in the sphere of Satan. The small remnant is of Mary. Anyone else who is with Bergoglio or with the Masonic Satanist conglomerate he has created, and with the devil, we cannot have contact. For the sake of avoiding contamination, this is what the Church teaches. Quoting St. Athanasius on sacraments. He was the one who said not to go to Mass with the Arians. And the French, but we haven't forgotten all these things. There's only one church, he says, which unfortunately has been infiltrated by a cancer that is the anti-papacy. And so the whole cancer goes, not throwing away the whole body, because the body itself is healthy. This is the position which at this point should be clear after 1 hour and a half, or rather, 1 hour and 3/4 of reflection. Never done anything like this. I'm clarifying, so let everyone who confronted Don Minutella go and confess now that he has been forced to clarify once and for all, given that Father Farè is not available for a public debate. Well, Bergoglio's isn't the Catholic Church, it's the false Church of Satan. Let's get back to Mozio Fultoncini and conclude. The Antichrist will try to establish his own church. Now, Father Farè, if Bergoglio were to be recognized as not just the anti-pope, but something more, As is evident, only fools fail to notice or choose not to notice. I am an idiot in the Greek sense, without meaning to be disrespectful. In fact, I apologize in advance, because it seems to me that on the other side there is a bit of sensitivity. Just a bit, not much, just a bit. Instead, we must be free to take a slap or two, but then let people find the truth. So if the church that Bergoglio leads is still the church, I could do as she openly claims, that the indefectibility has ended. Because if the church is holy, it cannot go against the gospel of Christ. If the church is apostolic, it cannot go against the gospel of Christ. And Bergoglio's church is one that is going against the gospel of Christ. So how do we put it? Not the church of Christ, so what is it? That which you stubbornly refuse to acknowledge because you think it is the most difficult path is indeed so, and that is why you do not wish to take it. It is the church of the Antichrist, which 𝐵 referred to as the mystical body of the Antichrist. And he will find, writes 𝐵, an anti-church that will be, Father Farè, remember these words, an imitation of the church because the devil is the monkey of God. He, the Antichrist, will find an anti-church. There cannot be just the Antichrist. The Antichrist wants a mystical body, like the one founded by Jesus Christ. And that is Rome. Madonna said it at Saletta. Rome becomes Antichrist's seat. He'll find an anti-church against the gospel. Anti-church opposes the gospel. Father Farè, please. Don't beat around the bush with me. This church goes against the gospel, so it cannot be the church of Christ. Call it what you will, not Christ's church. Sorry if I switch between you forms. Hope it's fine. If you were offended by this as well, I apologize. He will find an ancient church that will be an imitation of the church. Father Farè, what you believe to be the church led by the antipope and the church led by Satan is an imitation of the true church. So people don't notice, so people don't get it. Because the devil is God's monkey. Listen again. It will be the mystical body of the Antichrist that in all its exterior will resemble the church as the mystical body of Christ. There it is, the statement from Father and Monsignor 𝐵 that openly clashes with our position, which is impossible at this point. Therefore, I reiterate from this endless conference of mine, from this moment on, all collaboration with Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 is closed unless they admit we're right. So, be careful, Watch out. Because if it were true that this poor wretch Don Minutella, who everyone is attacking, is right that Bergoglio is not just the antipope, but is the envoy of Satan, and that what he leads is not the Catholic Church, but the mystical body of the Antichrist, and that it goes against the gospel, and it's all evident, you are the schismatics. Not schismatic to us. She, Father Farè, is schismatic, no less than the Bergoglians and the 𝐸∫ Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 is outside the true Church of Christ at this point. From this moment on, culpably, because we are throwing things on the table. Waiting for cardinals to act, ignoring that Bergoglio's church is Satan's, means helping to build it. You are complicit. You become, whether you like it or not, accomplices. And since she contests the mystical references, even though 𝐵 is not a mystical discourse, I would like to quote the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which speaks of a final trial of the Church. I read from the Catechism, so it's a didactic text. Before the coming of Christ, the Church must undergo a final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. It might seem that Father Farè is right so far. I mean, the proof is within the Church. It seems that way at the moment, doesn't it? The persecution that accompanies his pilgrimage on earth will unveil the mystery of iniquity in the guise of a religious imposture that offers men an apparent solution to their problems. The price of apostasy from the truth. Question: if the Church is experiencing this trial and is drifting towards apostasy, as the Catechism says, is it still the Catholic Church? Theology question. He's not talking about the church that's left the truth, but something else. I repeat, if it were true, and the Catechism, not 605/75, refers to the fact that the apostate from the truth is no longer the Catholic Church. It can be. If it is apostate from the truth, it is not the Catholic Church. So it is not the Catholic Church that has apostatized from the truth, it is the false church. In fact, the Catechism continues that the greatest religious deception is that of the Antichrist. So, the Catechism is saying that there is the Catholic Church which will have to face a trial, and this trial will be what separates the small remnant that remains faithful from the apostates who will indeed apostatize at the cost of the apostasy of the truth. There is the Antichrist that the Catechism of the Church speaks of. There is the anti-church, the Catechism implies this, and this triumph will not be achieved through a historical triumph of the Church, but through a life. God's victory over the final unleashing of evil. Credible. There is not only canon law. Read again. The kingdom will not be fulfilled through a historic triumph of the Church, following an upward progression, but through a victory of God over the final unleashing of evil. A victory of God, Father Farè, as the Madonna told the Madonna, in Good Luck, that the great prelate is sent by God. Let us all make ourselves comfortable. It won't be the cardinals who will resolve this. It's too serious. It was foreseen from the foundation of the world that it would be, as Revelation 13 says, enough. It speaks of the unleashing of the divine anti-Trinity. We must accept that it is God who intervenes, not the cardinals, and if they do, then God has used them. After 12 years, I doubt it. If it happens, I'll publicly apologize and go home saying, oh, thank goodness the cardinals acted. Father Farè was right. But meanwhile, the Church is denying the gospel. What now? And if I dissociate myself, I am not guilty of apostasy from the truth. If instead I join with Pope Francis, even thinking that he is not the Pope, I commit two sins, of lying and complicity. St. Thomas Aquinas, in Summa Theologia, says being complicit in error is as guilty as erring. Conclude? God had something better in mind, says Cardinal Emmerich. And indeed, Father Farè cleverly places the iron behind the door when he specifies that private revelations are not do as you please. For me, they are foundational. Not certainly like the Word of God, which, by the way, is a second head, as I will say in conclusion, tells you these things, but they do have their importance. It is built, says Catherine Emmerich, not by angels but by men, another church, and Catherine Emmerich calls it a false church, and false it is not, by the way. She states at this point, creating more confusion, that the sacraments would still be valid, and what about number 39 of the Eucharistic Church? What happens to that? Because she says they are illicit but valid. Illicit but valid. We will return to that. Do not attend the Masses, celebrated by those who do not distance themselves from this satanic gathering, just as I urge you not to go to the Masses once again with those who celebrate in union with Pope Francis. Don't mention Pope Francis, but believing that it's still the Catholic Church doesn't make much difference. Too much noise for nothing, a film would say. If it's a false church, then it's not true. It's like when number 39 of the Church of the Eucharist says, the Church of the Eucharist states that every valid Mass requires communion. So valid, the opposite of valid, is not illicit, it is not illegitimate. The opposite of valid in a canonical, legal, magisterial document, is invalid. So the famous union with Pope Francis attends an invalid Mass. It's not Don Minutella who says it, it's the Church of the Eucharist at number 39. It's a mistake. I conclude like this in two ways. The first, very quickly. The Church has warned us, as have the Roman pontiffs, that evidently Father Farè pretends not to know them. Or perhaps he truly doesn't. But I doubt it because he mentioned my book. If he has read it, it's written there. The Church has warned us. It's not just the mystics, not only God, not just heaven, and not only above all, the Word of God, not just the Catechism, not just Domina Nostra. Two popes have warned us. One who was already a pope, even at sunset, and the other who would become one. I quote Paul VI, 8th of September 1977, in a confidential dialogue later made public with 𝐥'𝐞𝐯. He says there is great turmoil at this moment in the world of the church. And what is at stake is faith. It happens that I repeat the obscure phrase of Jesus in the Gospel of St. Luke, when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith on the earth? It happens that books are published in which faith is withdrawn on important points that the episcopates remain silent about, so they shouldn't find these books strange. This seems odd, says the Pope. And then he adds, I sometimes reread the Gospel of the End Times, and I notice that at this moment some signs of this end are emerging. Are we close to the end? We'll never know that. One must always be ready, but everything could still last a long time. What strikes me when I consider the Catholic world is that within Catholicism, a non-Catholic way of thinking sometimes seems to prevail. And it may happen that this non-Catholic thought within Catholicism becomes the strongest tomorrow, but it will never represent the Church's thinking. There must be a small flock, no matter how small it is. It's also what Ratzinger says. Ratzinger, so it seems to me, in 1969, he does a radio broadcast, and he also speaks prophetically of another church that will be, he says, a more spiritual church that will not arrogate a political mandate by flirting now with the right or the left. It will be, etc., etc., a church of the small. The process will be long and arduous because they will need to eliminate the narrow-mindedness of sectarian views and the pompous stubbornness. So leave it to this sectarianism, Father Dr. 𝐥'𝐸, that is not a Catholic church. And then, as you know very well, Ratzinger speaks of a church, of a small remnant that survives the dominant and prevailing imposture and fights for the defense of the faith. Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 presented 14 pieces of advice in a broadcast on the 22nd of July, 2024, which Father Farè also reiterated for all priests wishing to come out of hiding. It is true that I, on behalf of the association, approve them, specifying, however, as 𝐥'𝐸 knows and acknowledges, that the point, in fact, I had asked to take time to publish it, because I had told him it would raise issues. Indeed it has, I was saying that. There is a point that we clearly do not share. What are the points? For priests who want to come out of hiding. First, self-sufficiency, own boxes, economic independence. Second point, talking with family. Support the decision. Third point, find friends and a canon lawyer to support the priest. Fourth point, to open a YouTube channel. Fifth, see the bishop explain Bergoglio's papacy's illegitimacy. Sixth, prepare a clear homily on the canonical issues citing Benedict XVI. Seventh point, prepare the sermon in English. Eighth point, choose a symbolic date with plenty of people allowed for the homily. Ninth point, prep video for homily. 10th point, deliver the homily with confidence. Oh, this is 𝐥'𝐸, journalist 𝐥'𝐸, not a bishop, a pope, or a cardinal speaking to the priests. Okay, 11th point, confront the bishop. Indeed, the devil tripped him up. Now he finds himself lost. He allowed many who followed him. He will see that many who followed him will no longer follow him, because I will no longer follow him. Made this inevitable choice, waited these days. I've chased this for a week, I think. No, today is Saturday, a week tomorrow. And Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 hasn't taken a single step forward except to move towards Father Farè, targeting Brother Celestino, contradicting Brother Celestino. That's sacrilege. A layperson contradicting a homily. What times are we living in? Because it's not like he was talking like that while drinking a coffee with his leg crossed, wearing sacred garments. Giving the sermon. 11. To confront the bishop, to draft a defense report to present to the bishop. 13. If excommunicated, appeal to the court. We must respect the rules, so I told Dr. 𝐥'𝐸 that we will never be able to approve point 14, even experimentally, because Don Ramon, the most recent one, has done what Don Enrico already did. He does not appeal. He does not appeal. And above all, he does not recognize what guides Bergoglio as the Catholic Church. These are the 14 points, so saying I approve them is pointless. Yes, I approve them, but I had specified that this, for obvious reasons, is an approved test, that we are not defending ourselves. Instead, Father Farè, for those who still haven't understood, does he mean to present to whom he presents? To the Catholic Church, as he sees it. Inside there, they are all allies of Satan, doing things from the other world. I stop here. And then maybe they send him the positions. 𝐥'𝐿𝐴 is convinced that I've been silent. He forces me to speak. Pay attention. Look. When you poke me, I become Don Minutella, the one you fear. But why? Paolo has grasped the request. Paolo has made a formal act of request. That is, everything that comes into the state service is registered, and it is mandatory to send the notification to the interested party. That's all. To pass this notification, as an official matter, it is so. I created this division, because even some from the very beginning, and it hurt me a lot, they sent me personal messages. I will delete them from my mind, and I'm sorry. I need to be well, but Father, let it go. But don't attack Father. Fair, he is a good priest. But why did he say he isn't a good priest? Am I attacking Father Farè now? I'm attacking 𝐥'𝐿𝐴. It's been a week that this situation has been going on. I'm clarifying. But why is it that when I clarify it's one way, and when others clarify it's self-defense? I don't really know about this. I think you know that Father Farè presents as 𝐥'𝐿𝐴 wants, presents the... They say the... Can't find the word. So it presents the appeal. Appeal means to acknowledge authority. But how can you appeal to a presidential court if you don't see Bergoglio as Pope? You can't. It's contradictory. It's contradictory. And if then an organization that openly states that Bergoglio is the Pope acknowledges your request, starts the process, what do? You find yourself divided because on one hand, you say and keep saying that Bergoglio is not the Pope, and then it becomes clear. So were we foolish, the priests of the fellowship? No. The intention not to appeal serves to tell the faithful, even those who don't deserve it. And there are many of you in the small remnant. At the first gust of wind and shot, you're like the reeds, like the flags, little flag wavers that you are. But to warn the faithful, by not presenting the appeal we are saying beware, Bergoglio is the anti-pope, but he is also the foreman of the Church of Satan, the one that exists in the Vatican, as Leo XIII saw in the famous dream of the 13th of October, 1881, when he saw the Church attacked by Satan. And that is what we are experiencing. From this moment on, it is definitively interrupted. Unless Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 has a change of heart, my valuable and fruitful collaboration with Dr. 𝐥'𝐴 is somewhat unbalanced, because I promoted him on my social media, and he hasn't done so as he should have. It hasn't been equal, because at the last moment they sought out the priest who helped to voice my opinion. It almost makes me want to cry. I truly feel stabbed in the back. They go looking for the priest who just came out to say Mass before the gathering, and we have been here for years, and he has never asked us. Especially because it aligns with the points that Father Farè has written or someone on his behalf, and the difference is substantial. Another small 𝐥'𝐴 group has formed that follows that line, insisting on following the canonical path, only recognizing that Bergoglio is not the Pope, but that is the Catholic Church. Do you understand the enormous difference? Because we on this side, while we agree that Bergoglio is not the Pope, everything else is not. Because that is not the Catholic Church. It is the Church of Satan. Where's the Catholic Church? In the small remnant, in those who recognize that there is the devil and do not associate, even for a moment. And this small remnant is led by the Virgin Satan and has the task of saving the Catholic faith in the time of the great apostasy of the truth spoken of in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. To those who understand few words, may the Madonna help us to comprehend. Thank you for all the insults. Thank you. The Father Farè apparently hasn't mentioned it, but I thank him. I've been told he banned everyone who came at me. Father Farè has noticed what they say about me. He's seen the amount of hatred directed at me. Does he know who fuels this hatred? Satan and the devil. Because perhaps Don Minutella with his brothers is the only one who tells the whole truth. Bergoglio is not the Pope. He is the foreman of Satan. He is Satan's lieutenant in the Vatican, where there is the false church of darkness. Because if that were the church, the indefectibility, holiness, and apostolicity would be compromised. Because there is a false church that is going against the gospel of Christ. Don't play with fire. You have time. From this moment, even in the face of various and cross initiatives, Don Minutella will no longer intervene. He has much more important things, not more serious, because they are serious matters, but much more important things to delve into. I greet with affection and forgiveness those who are leaving these days and have attacked me as if I were the worst priest on the planet. Thank you all. Thank you all. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Onward with Mary.